This is the Hype Squad with Charli McConnell, a podcast where women can be full of themselves and brag about what they're good at. Each week, we're going to bring you conversations covering topics like motherhood, life, relationships, business, and everything in between, because anything is possible with your very own Hype Squad. What's up, ladies? Welcome back to the Hype Squad. I'm Charli McConnell, your host, and today we have Eloise Stewart on. She is the founder of Eloise Design Co. She helps businesses build impactful brands through intentional design, mentorship, and workshops. Her program, called Being Well, empowers professionals with structure and wellness tools inspired by her entrepreneurial journey. Eloise connects clients with resources to grow their brands and thrive personally and professionally. Eloise, welcome to the Hype Squad.
Thank you.
I'm so excited you're here. Eloise and I have been talking for probably like an hour at this point, and I'm like, okay, we need to start recording because we got stuff to talk about. Okay. I'm so excited to talk about marketing stuff.
Okay.
I even went and got like a hard book and a pen because I'm like, I'm probably going to want to take notes for this.
Okay.
But I want to start with just how did you get into marketing? How did it feel natural? Where is the business now? Just kind of give us a little bit of background.
You know, it's funny with you using the word marketing, that word used to make me really uncomfortable.
Really?
Yeah, because I never visualized myself as a marketing professional. So my undergrad was in apparel design and production. My master's was in consumer behavior, which is a little bit closer into the marketing psychology realm.
Yeah.
Understanding why we buy what we buy, all that type of research. But I did not visualize my career as being something in marketing, which, you know, looking back now, nobody actually visualizes where they're going to end up, and our path is winding. But I left the fashion world and started transitioning into what now is branding for me. And that's been quite a journey for me to figure out where I want to be in this whole realm of, we use all these words interchangeably: branding, marketing, PR, communications, right? Advertising. They all get thrown around together. And one, I had to figure out and learn all the differences of these things and where I wanted to fit in the place, in that journey of it. And really, I'm not as much in marketing anymore in the business. I'm in branding. And, you know, people are like, oh yeah, but marketing. I touch marketing, but I am your foundation so that your marketing can work.
Yeah.
So you come to me and you come to our team for our services before you start marketing, before you do PR, before you do advertising. If you don't have a brand foundation, you're wasting a lot of time and a lot of money because you don't know what you're saying. You don't know who you're saying it to. And if you decide to spend $10,000 on social media ads, that could be great. It could be horrible mistake, all depending on so many things that you decide at the brand level. And so we've over the years, we've really refined that we are trying to stay in the branding space. So brand development, rebrands, and that's in the design part. It's also in the messaging. And if we can help you speak clearly, then a lot of those other things become so much easier down the road with your marketing and your advertising. So when I work with a client, I am not only looking at the brand level, I'm looking at strategy. And a lot of times, because of me having worked on marketing for clients for quite a few years, I can then give them a strategy and say, okay, you're going to want to go and spend your money here, not here, because of your brand, because of the things that you've decided are your business goals and things like that. So that's a really long answer to tell you about why I'm in this space, but yeah.
No, but it makes perfect sense. And you're right. Like, and I have not even really considered it before, but you're right. Marketing and branding and advertising and all of those things, PR especially, they all fall under that marketing, or at least that's how people are using it now.
Yeah.
But you're right. And I'm really glad that you said it that way, because when I think of branding, just from my own business, for example, it's gone through evolutions, right? And the first thing I think of are just business cards.
Yeah.
Like the evolution of the business cards, the colors that I picked, the font that I picked, the type of photos, all of those things. And it's because I didn't have a clear idea to begin with. I just had to hurry up and get something out.
Right.
And someone who doesn't want to take the time that it takes to do that and have more thought into it. So tell me, what are the things you want people to have a clear understanding of before they start to build their brand?
That's a good question. Yes, from a design perspective, we can talk about logos, colors, fonts, and everything. The reason why those are important is because we don't read anymore. And everything we're seeing for 1 second, and then we're distracted by the next thing. So it is really important to be consistent with your colors, your fonts, just the overall style that you have. Are you going to be really modern and feminine in your brand, or are you going to be more whimsical and really bright colors with it, right? Those are two different feelings. And if I see you on social media, let's use that for as an example, and I'm scrolling one day, right? I'm looking at your post as I'm scrolling really fast. I'm not even reading the caption. If you post something and it is modern feminine one day, and the next post you have the next day, I see something is that whimsical, like really colorful. My brain does not compute that those are the same things.
Yeah.
Right? That looks like something new my brain needs to learn and absorb. But if I see the same modern feminine colors, fonts, and style from you, every time I see you, I'm building recognition and brand awareness. And so that's why that's really important from the beginning of that you're just consistent. Whatever you do pick, be consistent with.
Yeah.
But the even more important part, which is the hardest part, and what we're becoming known for as really helping clients with the most, is the messaging. We take every client through what's called a brand message equation. It's a very simple equation. First, I want to know who are your target audiences, not women. But like you were telling me earlier about what you do, you told me what type of woman, what her age range was, what her difficulties were. I want to know her demographics. I want to know her psychographics. What are her desires? What are her motivators? That probably comes back from my consumer behavior research, right? I want to understand that because that's going to tell me a lot about where I should find you and what I need to say to you to catch your attention so that I can possibly be in the room with you at some point, right? And so if I can, and usually businesses and brands do not have one target audience. Most of them have 2 to 3. Now we're not speaking to all 2 to 3 at the same time. At certain parts, we're speaking to certain people. So we understand that. And then we're going to say, okay, what is each one of those audiences? What is their problem? What is their want? And what is their need? Now, not all of them have all 3 of those, but a lot of times they do. And if we can identify what is their real problem that you can fix, not 17 problems that you can fix, but what is one? What is the want that you can help them achieve? And what is that need that they can't do on their own? They need you to get them there. Then the next question is, okay, a part of the equation is, how are you the solution to those problems, needs, and wants? And we break it up into the how and the what. The what's really easy. You offer coaching services. That's the what. But the how is what's really hard and where most people get stuck because it's the so what question. I love to use this example. One of my best friends owns a video production company. What she offers is video production, creating high quality videos for you. The how is she helps you connect with your audience. That's what matters because she always says that video is the closest thing from sitting across from someone, right? So that's her how, which I think is a perfect example. Then once we know that, I want to know what is the success or the transformation that your target audience experiences by working with you. And sometimes you can use simple words like they go from tired, exhausted, and stressed to having energy and being hopeful for things, right? And so you can go transformation or just the success that they have at the end of the day. And it kind of depends on the type of business that you have. So now we have all these components of the equation, and now we can write one sentence about what you do. And so we have formulas for it of how we write that one sentence, but it's not fluffy. We're not trying to add a lot of adjectives. That can be in marketing and advertising language later. I want the basis of what you do. And if we can clearly identify those parts and then the what you do statement, it clears up everything for them to speak and to make decisions then for their brand.
I'm like listening to you going through my own mental checklist of what I've done. And is this like an I help statement type of thing? Is that kind of a variation of that?
Yeah, it can. Usually it's, like You can start with the business name. You don't always have to. You can say I or we. And then it usually has some strong action verb with your target audience. Like we have different variations of the formula.
Okay.
But yeah.
I'm thinking too with like the different, I call them ideal client avatars. And
Yeah.
that's what I was the wording I was taught. But I had four. I was like, that's way too many. And then it came down to three. And it's the different type of women that I work with
Yep.
and that I serve. And that's so helpful because everything is built around that. How am I getting their attention? Right. So I have one avatar who is 30 and up, either no kids or an empty nester, and is a business owner. Well, I'm not reaching her the same way I'm reaching my 20-year-old senior in college. Like it's vastly different.
Yep.
And I was telling you before we recorded, I have a really broad age range of women. And that's difficult too, because there are so many variations of where to find them, whether it's YouTube or Pinterest or LinkedIn
Right.
or TikTok or and that's a lot of work on my end. And then to kind of figure out, well, who am I working with the most? Where do I need to really hone in my attention? And that's a process. That is just throwing it at the wall and seeing what sticks type of thing. But there's so much to it. My husband uh, is a great marketing mind in his business and just in general. And so I've watched him go through and he'll be embarrassed that I don't remember all the terminology, but like the vision all the way down to the execution and how all the details are mixed in and how, you know, if you can get from vision to execution, that's the goal,
Yeah.
right? But actually getting there is really, really difficult. Um,
And I'll just say like that our equation is nothing novel. Right? Like there are so many frameworks that are really similar. Like you talking about avatars, same thing, right?
Sure.
We've just found that framework works really well, and it breaks it down into a process that is digestible for our clients to work through. And sometimes our clients don't even know we're working through that equation. We're just asking questions and we're actually forming it for them. And then we teach it to them like, this is your equation, this based on what you've said. So yeah, it's nothing necessarily novel. We've just found that it works for us.
I mean, I could think too, like when I was first trying to build this, it felt very confronting to have to go through and find. It was an assignment I was given to do when I was going to get certified in coaching, and they did a really good job teaching you about branding and marketing and all of the things. And they wanted us to go through and build our avatars, and that was so confronting to me because I'm like, I just want to help everybody. Everybody. And they're like, that's not an answer. Like, you have to be more specific. And not just that, but like each avatar got a story. Like, where is she at 6 o'clock every day? And like, write kind of a bio for her because it helps you get into their mind. And that, if I could have gotten there sooner, I would have been a lot better off, but it took so long to dig into that. And do you find that with the people you work with struggling with that?
Yeah. And but I mean, you think about it from your coaching perspective, right? You're helping like it is so valuable to have someone else's perspective. Yes, their expertise, right? We have expertise. We do this all day, every day. But our perspective is what's really valuable for them because you're so in your head when it's your business. You are so vulnerable. It is so personal.
Yeah.
You need someone to say, I hear you, but let's look at this. Or that's good. Let's follow that. Right. Like you need that. And so my team laughs. They're like, was that was that consulting or was that a therapy session?
What's the difference, really?
when you're dealing with like even sole proprietors, one woman shows, one man shows for a business. Yeah, therapy is very intertwined into branding.
Yeah. Well, when you own your business, they're all mixed in. We said this before we started recording. Like, where does one stop and the other begin when it's just you?
Yeah.
It's all the same.
Yeah.
Which is hard.
But
Really hard.
I love both parts.
Yeah.
You know, there's definitely a lot of I never like to call myself an agency because of that personal component. Before I started the business, I was teaching at Auburn University. I love the teaching. I love the mentoring. And that's something that I've been trying to intertwine in the business from day one. I want to get to the root of why you can't make a decision about this logo. It's not because you're a difficult person.
Mm-hmm.
You are insecure about something, and I want to get to the root of that.
Mm.
And so it brings in my second business, which is Being Well, and some of the concepts we learned there into the branding and marketing and strategy work that we do. So I can't separate the two when I'm working with a client. I need to understand both in order to actually really help them make decisions.
Well, I want to talk about Being Well more too, because I feel like it was such an organic way that came out. So
Yeah.
tell me a little bit about that business.
Yeah. So there's some businesses where you're like, I am starting this business and I know that this is what I want to do. This business was never the plan. Like it wasn't like, okay, I'm going to start Eloise Design Co. and then so many years in, I'm going to start my second business. That was never
Right.
I love when people think that everything is planned out. No, it's
Never.
I walk through the doors that have been opened for me, right?
Mhm.
But it was in 2019. A good friend of mine, he and I were talking. He was part of a group that had this program where they would train up facilitators to teach this content on stress and burnout and anxiety, specifically in like entrepreneurs. And he was like, I think you're gonna really like this. You should bring this to Auburn. He didn't live in this area. And I was like, well, this sounds great. I can't add one more thing to my plate. Not one more thing. I am struggling as it is. You're talking about stress and burnout. Yeah.
Yeah. Me.
Yeah.
Yes, please. Yeah.
And, he's a very patient and persistent guy. And we kept talking about it. And there was one day we were talking about how he was working with a chamber of commerce somewhere. And that's when the light bulb went off, because I was serving on the board for the Auburn Chamber, and I still am. But at that point, I was like, huh. And we had just moved into 2020. In chambers of commerce, a big thing that they provide to their members is events for connection and networking and all that.
Yeah.
Couldn't do any of that. So the chambers are thinking, how do we bring value to our membership during this time where a lot of our members are struggling?
Mm-hmm.
So it really was just the timing of it all was perfect. I don't think it would have worked if it hadn't been with the pandemic, to be honest with you.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna talk to them about it. No pressure. So I go to the president, and she was over events, these two women at the chamber, and I was like, my friend Will, he wants to bring this training. Like, I could be trained in the facilitation, y'all can be, and then we can bring this program to our women in business group. And, like, that's the only information I had for them. I didn't have anything else. And like, if someone brought that to me, I'd be like, okay, well, you need to go do your research. You need to find more information.
Yeah.
And they're like, okay, let's do it. And I was like, oh, I'm not.
Wow.
I'm not ready.
Yeah.
I'm not ready. I was really hoping that they would be like, yeah, that sounds good. That
go
sounds
work
nice.
on that and come back.
And
Yeah.
then I would have an excuse to tell Will, see?
Yeah, it's not going to work. Yeah.
But no, they're like, let's do it.
Wow.
So we go through, it's a 14-week program. And it was so hard on me because I was learning how to be a facilitator, which was not the hard part. What the hard part was, I had to deal with a lot of my own stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And he would be training us on this. He's like, to be a good facilitator and to sit and hold space for people in a room, you have got to have dealt with your own stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So that is what you've got to do. You cannot bring any of your stuff into the room. It's not about you. And I get the same thing with coaching. I'm right. And I'm like, oh, okay, well, I better get a hold of this. But I mean, I was so burnt out. I did not have boundaries with my clients. I didn't have boundaries with my work. I didn't even know what expectations were.
Yeah.
Who knew what I expected of myself or what my clients expect? I mean, like, nothing was defined. I was just working hard. I want to make you happy. I want to grow this, right?
Hustle.
Yeah. And I was in the business that year had the highest revenue I'd had ever. I was at my lowest. And it had to change. And so I would go through this program, I'm learning this stuff. And I remember, like, we would have to do homework in these videos on our own, and just tears would be coming down my face. And my husband would walk in, he's like, are you okay? And I'm like, I'm just working through it.
Yeah, just letting it out.
Yeah. But it saved me. And it saved the business, because if the person isn't well, the brand's never going to be well.
100%.
And so we get through with it. And I'm working on things, baby steps on little habits and things like that. And he's like, okay, what do you think? You ready to to take it and make, do an event or a workshop or something. I'm like, well, I mean, this was life-changing for me, but can I be really honest with you? I'm never going to convince a woman in business to give me 14 weeks of her life. It's not a good marketing model. It's not going to happen right now. And he's like, okay. And I was like, and for me to teach it, it's too corporate, it's too neuroscience, and it's too masculine. And he's like, all right, why don't you rewrite it? I was like, not why I gave that feedback.
Yeah. I do not want another assignment. I've already completed it.
So I rewrote it.
Of course you did.
Yeah. So I rewrote it, took it from 14 weeks to 8 hours. And we did
Wow.
1 day women's retreat. We had so many women sign up that we did 2 days back to back. Talk about one of the hardest things I've done is to hold space for about 25 women for 8 hours one day, do it again the next day. But and you've probably felt this, exhaustion from something that you know you're good at and you love, and you're like, you can't figure it out, but it's like, I'm supposed to do this.
Yes.
It's hard to explain to somebody, but you are exhausted, but you are so filled at the same time. And I'm probably describing that whole thing wrong, but
no, that was great.
So I was like, there's something here. Yeah. I have no idea what it is. I don't know if this is a business. I don't know what it is. And so from there, for the next like 6 months, that was like July. So till the end of that year, I got asked to come speak like 6 or 7 more times. Wow. Which was not the goal. And it was all organic. From somebody would come, they'd be like, can you bring this to my team? Or can you bring this to our group? So I started teaching it more and more. And we get to the end of the year and, we were licensing, even though I rewrote it, it was still based on the company I learned it from. So they technically owned it. And the licensing was renewing. And it was like, okay. And they were also changing a lot in their business of who they were going to target and everything. And I was like, well, I don't want to keep growing something that I don't own.
Yeah.
Because at any moment, it could change and be taken from us. So we took that whole next year and we said, okay, we're going to rewrite it again from scratch so that it's all ours. That was the hardest thing to do because you've learned it a certain way.
Yeah.
You've learned examples and flow. And, I'm finally in a rhythm of like, I can lead this.
Yeah. And you feel good.
Like,
yeah.
Okay.
You're learning a new language. Yeah.
Let's do it again.
Yeah.
So for a whole year, I would go and teach a workshop, come back to him and be like, this is what worked. This is what didn't work. And we change it again. And then I would teach it again.
Oh, wow.
And until it got right. And then we moved into the next topics. But so, I mean, it was something that was a lot of work that a lot of people didn't see for a long time. And then after that year that we felt comfortable, we owned that content, then we launched the business officially as Being Well together. And that's what we have today. But that's kind of just this evolution of not knowing exactly what it was, but kind of just being willing to be obedient to the doors that were opening in front of us.
Surrendering to the process, right? Yeah. That is, that's hard for me to do as well. Most people, it's impossible. But I think with practice, you kind of get a little bit more comfortable. One of my favorite affirmations, no, it's not even affirmation, but mantras is things are happening for me, not to me. And like, if I can see it as a challenge that I want to face head on, I'm going to learn so much from it and it's going to make me better. You talking about having to work on yourself in the process of coaching. So what made me want to be a coach was working with my first coach. And he was the one that actually said to me, I think there's something here. We need to dig into this. And he actually coached me through starting the initial concepts for what this was going to be.
Yeah.
And initially it was very much specific to college girls. Yeah. And one of the things he said to me was, if my daughter would have had you in college, her 20s would have looked a lot different. And that was like the spark, because fulfillment is not the word I would use with my last business. It was gratifying. Sure. I was proud of myself. It was challenging, all of those things, but I was not fulfilled in really any way. It felt very imposter. Yeah, I was just kind of going through the motions. And so figuring out what I wanted to be and what I wanted to do and where all of my skills lied. I've always said I should have been a therapist.
Yeah.
And I actually, this is kind of off topic, but I told myself I was going to go back to school. I love school. I love school. I'm very educated. I have a lot of different degrees and, different things. But I told my husband, I was like, I'm just going to go back to school and become a marriage and family counselor because duh, I thrive there. 3 more years of school, sign me up. And he's like, you could do this now. You are running, like you are hiding from here's your challenge. Like you're not seeing it, but this is your challenge. And I'm like, he's right.
Yeah.
And I was ready then. I didn't need a thing. I mean, yeah, of course I could always go back and do that, but it would be a very different business that I would be building.
Yeah.
And you talked about the chamber saying yes. So when I started this podcast, and this is just the first example I think of, I was floored at how many people said yes before there was even a podcast. There was nothing for them to go back and listen or watch or anything.
Right.
And they were saying yes. And some of these people didn't even know me. And I'm like, wow, I can't believe they said yes. Like, would I have said yes?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. And so it's such a great, like, positive feedback loop to be like, people are willing to take a chance. Like, I need to be willing to take chances as well. And just feeling really honored for that, but also a huge responsibility at the same time.
Yeah.
But it's like, you build it when it's needed. My husband said something one time to me, and he's kind of been my business coach in a lot of ways, but he's like, sell it and then create it. Like if you can sell it first, and as long as you have someone who's willing to buy it, then you go create it.
Yeah.
And I always thought that was, no, I need to create it and have it perfect, kind of going back to that before I can ever pitch it to anyone. He's like, no, I've tried the other way.
Yeah.
And that did it. It really, it has worked in a lot of different ways. I also find myself wanting it to be perfect. But you just got to throw it out there and see what happens and learn in the process.
That's one of the hardest things about being in branding. Branding is very intentional. And we talk about this as a team. We talk about this with clients, defining the difference between intention or intentional and perfection. And we have to keep ourselves in check, because if we're stressed, if we're not in a good place, if we're overextended, we will overthink everything to perfection. And we're trying to make everything perfect for the client instead of being intentional with the strategy, looking at the equation and everything. And so it's something that in branding, you're constantly checking with yourself.
Yeah.
And be like, am I trying to make this perfect? Or am I just trying to be intentional?
Yeah. And can I argue my case? Like, do I have real thought put behind stuff? As somebody in my coaching course that I did, one of the things they said was you only have to be 10% further along to coach someone. And I remember that being such an aha moment. Like, I don't need to be perfect. I don't need to have everything figured out. It's actually better that I don't. Because in a lot of ways, I'm in the trenches with you. And if I put myself on a pedestal and make it seem like I have it all figured out, that's not attainable for a lot of people. It's also not, it just doesn't appeal to most people. They want to know that I'm real. And I also think I built my business a lot. Like I was my client number one. Like if I was entertained by it or if it got my attention, okay, it works, right? Because I know me. I know what I like. I can't pretend to know what all these other people might like, but also if it's me and it's authentically me, they need to know who I am, or else I don't want to surprise them. I don't want to come off as something completely different. Like my first colors were green. Green's my favorite color.
Okay.
Easy, right? It was very uh, earthy tones, things like that. I like earthy tones, but I see myself as a little bit more vibrant than that. Like I'm not super peaceful. I'm a little bit louder, sometimes more outspoken. And so I kind of pulled away from that, because even going on my website, it was like greens and golds and calming and stuff. And I'm like, I can't like come out talking the way that I talk and then have this super like calming thing. So purple's my next favorite color. Shifted it to purple. Also, I've in the past year talked more about epilepsy. My daughter has epilepsy, and that their big color is purple. I was like, oh, that's perfect. Marry the two together, and just that color shift changed so much. Like the glowing lights and it that felt way more me.
Felt like you.
But I had to figure it out. I had to try something and it not work.
Yeah.
And I don't consider myself a perfectionist. I like to have control.
Yeah.
I mean,
Oof. Yeah.
that's definitely my thing, but perfection is not really a struggle of mine, which I'm thankful for, because then it would have taken me a year to get to purple and said, okay, this is perfect to go.
You
know
needed
what
to
I
start
mean?
with greens and golds and
Yeah, I
yeah,
needed to learn that.
I agree with you. And I see that I go through phases where perfection starts creeping in on me, right? I'm more aware, right? Because of the work that I do. And like I have noticed I've been in a season the last couple of months where I'm tilting towards perfection. And so I'm having to be really aware. I'm having to talk about it. I'm having to like talk to certain people so they can hold me accountable on it.
Yeah.
But really a lot of the work that we do within being well goes back to control.
Mm-hmm.
We're usually trying to control something. We're either can't loosen the grip, right? And we just need to let something go. We won't delegate because we want control over something, whatever it is, but it's usually connected to control in some way. And I like to be in control.
I want to talk. I want to spin from the control and delegating, because I know you had a big year last year.
Yeah.
You now have a brick and mortar actual office space and in multiple employees. I'm not sure if that started before or after. Talk to me about what that's been like for you and how big of a transition, and congratulations to start off, because that is such a big deal. How long did you say you had the business before you?
9 years.
Wow.
So I will say this before I get into that. My goal was not to have a space.
Right.
And for a long time in the business, I picked up on cues from people where they thought when like you're going to be legitimate when you have a space, when you move out of your house. And I started my business before 2020. So 2020 actually helped my business because people realized like, oh, you can work from home.
Yeah.
And still have a legitimate business and make money. So that definitely helped people understand. But yeah, it wasn't like it was 9 years of me trying to get an office space and I finally did. And I also do not want to share the lie that like success equals an office space. For a lot of women that we work with who are starting businesses, that doesn't need to be your goal necessarily. For some people, yeah, you need a space to do your business. But we were able to do the work that we were doing remotely and out of my home at the time. But things started shifting. The team started talking to me about needs that we had, not only for themselves wanting a space, but also we do a lot of brand photography and photo shoots. So we needed a space. We were always going to new spaces, always renting out spaces for clients. And so that was a big part. I do a lot of recording and teaching. Having one space for that wasn't in the home would be nice, things like that. So, we started talking, and really it was for a year. I prayed, and this goes back to the control part. I used to pray. I used to be like, okay, I'm going to figure out a perfect plan for an office space. And then when I figure it out, then I will tell God what it is. And then he'll know how to act. Because as if, if we're going to believe that he is the God of the universe, right? Don't know what your beliefs are. But anyway, just for the sake of the argument, if he really is the God of the universe, why does he need little old Eloise to tell him the plan so that he can act? Like he's not a genie in a bottle. Right. So that's something, that's control over it. So I was like, okay, I'm going to let go. And I was like, you know what, Lord? Just swing open the door and I'll walk through it. And that was the prayer for a year.
Wow.
Open the door and I will walk through it. Meaning that like, if you feel like we should move, if it's the right time, all of that, it will happen. And literally this last summer, in July, the space that we have now was our client's space, one of our clients. And he had it for about a year. And when he first got it, he had reached out to me and said, hey, do you want to rent out this extra little room that I have? Do you need it? And I was like, no, I don't need one room. And I joked with him and said, if it was reversed, I got the whole office and you rented out a room, maybe this could work. And he's like, no, that's not what I want. So, we like didn't talk about it again. So a year later, things are shifting in his life, and I'm continuing praying for the door to open, and I'm like, it was one evening. I still remember where I was in the house, and I just sent him a text, and I was like, I'm going to start looking for a space this year. I'm feeling like something's coming. I really like your space. If you're ever moving out, would you at least let me know first? That's all I said. And he's not one to like text back really fast, call back, or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, I'm going to put it out there, go make dinner. He calls me immediately. Wow. And I'm like, oh, I don't know. Am I ready? Am I ready?
Yeah.
This goes back to me with being well. I'm like, wait a minute. Oh,
Yeah. Like, hold on. You weren't supposed to call.
yeah. So he calls, and I'm like, oh, no, you weren't supposed to call me back. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to, like, he's like, no, 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 no. And he said, I don't know if this is a God thing or if you believe in that or whatever, but I was just having a conversation with my wife that I needed to come back home with the office that day. And I was like, oh, yeah. And he is like, do you want it? And I was like, well, might need to know some details.
Yeah.
So we talked through that. He calls his landlord. He's in like a 3-year lease. He calls his landlord and is like, this is a situation. I have this person that'll take over the lease. Landlord calls me the next day. He's like, hey, I've called around and heard you have a good reputation. You want it? And I'm like, oh, I have not, like it just all of a sudden was happening so fast. So it was one of those things though that I think because I want things to feel like they're perfect and everything makes sense, it was the best thing to happen to me because it was like, you can't ignore this.
Mm-hmm.
This is too beautifully falling into your lap.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, you don't know like all the details of like how this is all going to work and how you're going to furnish it and renovate it and the revenue we need to blah, 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 all those things. You could talk yourself out of something like this.
Yep.
I was like, we're going to do it. And I'm going to figure it out as I go. And so that's what we did. So we got access to it like the beginning of August. And for 2 months, we renovated it. And then by the beginning of October, we had our ribbon cutting for it. And so this last year has really 2024 had some of the highest highs, but also some of the lowest lows too. But so it's a hard year to look back on, but a really cool year to look back on.
I think so. The hardest hard and the highest highs and lowest lows. I said this a lot to myself and to clients and to everyone. With expansion, inevitably comes contraction. Like you grow and then you come back in. You grow and you come back in, and so it is. And I've said this to clients, like we're having a lot of expansion. Go ahead and prepare yourself.
Yeah.
Like something is going to tick off inside your brain that you're going to pull back in, and that's okay. Don't let that derail you, right? I think too, talking about following your intuition and your gut instincts and just taking a chance, you never know what's going to happen, and you're never going to get what you want until you ask for it.
Yeah.
In some way, right? Until you actually put effort out into the world. Like I believe a lot in signs, asking for specific signs and waiting for them to come, because it's not, you can't just sit in your house and like want, right? And want for all of these things to happen. It takes actual action and effort put into it. It may be as simple as shooting off a text. Like, what's the worst could happen? He could say no, right? What if he says yes? Right.
Yeah.
And then you have to scramble. But there is a level of excitement that overwhelms all of the other emotions that could derail you. Like the excitement keeps you going, it keeps you energized. And all the other stuff that's kind of laying dormant is the stuff that would derail you if you were in your perfectionist mode. But the excitement of like, oh my God, we just got to figure it out. I can't lose it. Can't lose it. Right.
Yeah.
Like just go. That is such a great lesson for so many other things. And I think too, when you own a business, the lessons you're learning in business are huge life lessons at the same time.
Huge. Yeah.
And if you weren't in business, where would you learn those lessons, right? It is such a magnifying glass of humans in general, right? Like I've learned that in so many ways. Like, I just can't believe they would do that. Well, humans surprise you, right? Like, do not put all your eggs in one basket, right? Diversify or have a backup plan or whatever it may be. But talking about having a home, that's significant. And even on my small scale, this was a guest room, right? We're sitting in my office, like makeshift into a podcast studio, but it had a bed in here.
Yeah.
And I just like bought a little desk off Wayfair and was working from it. And I would lay all my stuff out on the bed. And I finally said to my husband, like, this doesn't feel like I'm working. It feels like I'm in someone else's space and we don't even have people that stay with us. Like, why do I have this guest room? And so making this room into an actual office was a game changer. And so I think of it in that perspective of like having a home, having some place that you can entertain and welcome people, but also coming in the door and turning on and walking out and turning off. Has that been like not having it in your home?
I did not move into an office space because I was struggling with working from home.
Sure.
I had created a lot of physical and just mental boundaries with my work. Now, yes, to a degree, no matter how many boundaries you put in place, you're still living and working in the same space.
Yeah.
So that definitely did affect me. And I have really enjoyed being in a different space for sure. But yeah, we had a room. We bought the house. We bought the house because we wanted to renovate it, and we knew buying the house that we were using it for my business, for photography, video, a lot of those things. But the room on the front of the house, we chose that for my office, and it was only used for the office. Nothing else happened in that room except for my work, and it was respected that way. And it's something that I tell clients as well, even in the being well to Eloise Design Co and the brand. It's like your space impacts you so much. It impacts me so much. And you think about it from a branding and marketing standpoint. You think about spaces you walk into in stores. Just walking through the door tells you a lot as a customer of what you're about to experience in terms of price point, in terms of quality, in terms of customer service. A lot of those things are in the space dictates that. And so when we were designing out this office space, a lot of intention went into how we designed it. And thankfully we had a landlord that was like, yeah, go for it. But like the scent, the air, the seats and how you sit, the colors, the light, the natural light that comes in, like all of these things, the fact that you have cool water when you walk in, all of those things impact you.
Yeah.
And they also tell you about the brand and the experience you're going to have when you work with our team. So space is huge to me, but also it's huge in the whole experience of a brand.
Client experience was the most important thing to me when I first started doing this, because I noticed those things as a consumer. And they make or break an experience for me. Some people are just not totally, aware of it, but I am. And so that was kind of my thing. I did 10 to 12 practice clients to begin with, which were friends and friends of friends that I was like, hey, give me 4 to 6 weeks of your time. Let me coach you, give me feedback, right? And maybe a review. That's all I'm going to charge you for, right? And I wanted to know everything, like the booking, the doing the review, the Zoom process. How was it? Did you have too many reminders? Just because not all my people are in person. A lot of people I work with are virtual. And I want to make sure everyone's getting the same experience. And that was just so important to me. Like, as few clicks as possible, or as few interference as possible until they get to the thing that they're going for, because otherwise you'll lose them. People lose me every single day when I'm on social media trying to find something. And so that's a big thing. And I think that also depends probably on a generation of the business owner, because I think some people, in my past business, my business partner was 13 years older than I was. And there was a lot of stuff. She was like, they're not going to care. And I'm like, oh yes, they will. They will. 'Cause I would. Right.
Yeah.
I'm sure that's probably something you see on repeat.
Yeah. And I think that might be we always ask this question of our clients: what's the one misconception, or what's a couple misconceptions that could be out there about your business or your industry? I love that. That's one of my favorite questions to ask. But for us is, even if one, people don't understand what branding is compared to like marketing and advertising, right? So we'll get over that hurdle. But what people think is branding is going to be their logo, their website, the design part. They don't realize that branding bleeds into every part, because the definition of branding is intentionally creating an all-encompassing reputation of oneself through every avenue that you're perceived. You perceive me in the way that I have dressed today. You have perceived me in the way that I wrote you emails back. You perceived me by looking at my website. You know, there's so many ways that you're perceiving me. Same thing with our clients and customers. And oftentimes they're perceiving us not while working with us, but before in the attraction phase. And we've got to make sure that what they're perceiving in the attraction phase is consistent with the actual experience phase, so that we could actually create a reputation, because it's cyclical, right? Attraction, experience, reputation. It goes all around. And so I find more and more opportunities as we're growing as a business to help businesses with more than the design and the messaging, the website and the strategy. Like, I love getting into the entire experience part with them. The way that their office looks and feels, their system. We're starting to be asked inside of our branding projects to add on systems and processes audit, because they're starting to realize if my systems and processes aren't aligned with all this work I've done on the branding, I'm going to lose customers. I'm not building up the reputation I want, everything. So I'm kind of excited about where that's heading for us, that we get to tap into some of these other areas of the business that really are impacted by branding.
Well, I mean, your clients kind of lead you into where the business goes next and to what they actually need. So that makes sense. I think about when you talk about the full brand. At the very beginning of this, I started a Facebook group just trying to fill out all the different methods to connect with people. Because one thing I really struggle with is, what the hell is coaching? Like, is it therapy? Is it not? What, are you a health coach? You know, all of these things. And so a lot of what I have to do is explain what coaching is, but also it's me. It's, do you connect to me?
Yeah.
And so it's funny to go back and look at some of these the very beginning of the Facebook lives, because in my mind I thought I needed to look professional, and I went and got ready as a professional. I put a lot of curl in my hair. I had lipstick on, which is like a telltale sign that I'm uncomfortable because I do not wear lipstick.
Okay, that's good to know.
And extra jewelry, and just not how I would typically dress.
Yeah.
And so it was like I was looking at a different person. I'm like, that doesn't even, and not just that, by being in that headspace, I felt like I even talked differently, and it wasn't me. So even if I built rapport with you, it was the wrong, it was not even the right person to connect to. And so I needed to do that to figure out that that didn't work. And so the messy, not being a perfectionist and just going out there messy, taught me a lot of things. And like now, this is how I am. Like, I have got my holy jeans and my, you know, sweaters or sweatshirts or whatever on, because that's who I am. And I'm not going to be in here in sweats and things like that, but I'm not going to pretend, because if I show up as her, I feel different, I act different, I speak different. If I show up like this is who I really am.
Yeah.
But I had to build confidence in order to know that I could show up like this and people would still take me seriously.
But I think that's a really great example of what intention is in branding, because you've decided what is true for you, and then you've stayed consistent with it, right? And that's such a great example, because I feel like a lot of clients feel like they need to be like in the suit, in the thing, to be professional, be legitimate as a business owner, whatever a business owner looks like.
Right. I mean, who is that?
Right.
Who is she? I don't know.
It looks different for everybody. But I love that for you, because you found what is right for you, that aligns. It's also going to connect with your target audience is. But if you didn't know who your target audiences were, you couldn't make sure that that also aligned. And so you found that, and now you're consistent with it. And then you're also showing up and prepared as your best self, because what we find sometimes is people are coming in scattered, not prepared, and they don't realize how much that impacts the experience of the other person. So you can wear a hoodie, right? But as long as it's you and you're ready, and this is intentionally wearing the hoodie or the sweatshirt or whatever,
Yeah.
that's the difference.
Well, I think too, if you start it as one thing and people start to connect to you, is that you have a responsibility to continue that. And if that is not who you really
Right.
are, how exhausting,
So
right?
exhausting.
Like if I would have gotten a lot of clients with all that lipstick on and the curl in my hair and all the things, 6 months in, I'd be like, I can't take it anymore. I'd burn out. Right. And so showing up authentically in life and in business as much as possible, in my opinion, really helps alleviate the burnout to some degree. A friend of mine who's also a coach, I've had her on the podcast before, Jen, she talked about her business when she first started was very masculine. The colors, she would wear the business suits because she thought if I'm going to be in this room with a bunch of men, I have to be masculine to be taken seriously.
Sure.
And she had to build her own confidence and have her own, resume to fall back on. And now she's leading in her feminine energy, which is bringing her more clients because they're connecting to her more authentically. And so it's just a process. It is. And you will figure it out, but branding is at the core so important.
Yeah. And I have clients, so I'm my hair is always done, makeup, and I'm always dressed. I always wear black. And I've gotten comments before from clients like it as if it's comparison, as if the way that I present myself is the way that a female should present her small business.
Interesting.
And I'm like, oh, no. This is me.
Yeah.
I decide to wear black because it's a way I reduce decision fatigue, because I buy only in neutrals. They all go together in a lot of different outfits, and it reduces the amount of decisions I have to make so that I can show up to work and make decisions that actually matter.
Very Steve Jobs of you.
Very Steve Jobs of me. Yeah, let's not pretend that I came up with that. But that I decided that's one thing I could do. I liked it. And do I like color? Yes. Do I love what other women wear? And sometimes like, oh man. Yes. But what matters to me more is reducing my decisions to show up. And so now, that's kind of become my look and my brand. And so now I'm just sticking with it.
But it's consistent. Yeah, it's consistent. It works. My husband just did the same thing. He was like, okay, is it going to be white button ups or black button ups? And I'm like, black. He's like, okay, done. And he ordered like 10 or 12 of them. And that's what and same reason, like he just doesn't want to think about any of it. And for me, like my thing I go back to all the time is a button up shirt. Like that's what I always have on. It's just easier. I always have makeup on, just not the lipstick. And my hair, like I always have because I do this with clients too who work from home, who aren't on Zoom or anything like that. I'm like, if you have to get up and get ready to leave your house, you're not ready for the day. Like the only thing I want you to have to do before you step out of your house is put shoes on. That's how I want you to come to your desk, because that means you have gotten ready for the day, right? Because a lot of girls I was working with right out of college were just in their pajamas all day. And then they were wondering why they weren't motivated and felt kind of depressed. And I'm like, well, because your mind thinks you're just lounging all day, but you're not. And there is a lot that goes into that. But I think that's funny how people are like, is that what a woman in business looks like?
Should I be? I'm like, no.
She also has holy jeans and a sweatshirt on and like knockoff Uggs. It all works. It all works. But it's who are you showing up for? Who is your market? All of those things. Oh my gosh, there's so much. Where are we on time? There's one more thing I want to come back to because we talked about it before we recorded. And one of the things you put as things you were comfortable talking about is the fact that you don't have any kids. And that was your decision, and your kids are your business, and it is something that you've had to deal with as far as people not understanding. And I think that that's so relatable. I gave you my 2 cents on just having one kid and how lots of people had opinions about that. But what's like your cheat code if you had someone out there listening that's like, I don't want to have kids either. What do I tell people?
Well, I think everything is so black and white in our world. And it's not that stark or dramatic of me not wanting to have kids or whatever. And I don't even think that someone listening who's still trying to decide needs to feel like it's so black and white, because it wasn't for me for a long time. I grew up I've always been a very more nurturing person. I've
Mm-hmm.
always loved kids. I was the babysitter starting at 12 years old and do it now as an aunt. Like,
Mm-hmm.
so it's not like I'm like, oh, I don't like kids. Love kids.
Yeah.
My husband is a high school math teacher and a coach. Like,
Mm-hmm.
talk about someone who's good with awkward ages of life. Like, so I think some of the questions by people were more, they were just surprised
Yeah.
that we didn't have kids. And when so my husband and I met when we were 13, started quote unquote dating at 14. We were together for 10 years before we got married. We've actually been together, friends, dating, or married for 20 years now. So we
Wow.
really grew up together. And both of us thought, well, we're going to get married. And then a few years later, we're going to have kids. Like, I think that's just what we assumed. But we had told each other when we got married, we're not going to put the pressure on ourselves to have kids for the first 5 years. So it was off the table on conversation, which took a lot of pressure off.
Mm-hmm.
I was trying to figure out my career. I had had my first job. I got let go in some layoffs. I went and taught at the university. I was told to get a PhD or leave. So I left. I started a business, right? Like, that was not a time to be having kids,
Yeah.
right? So the pressure was off. We got to year 5 and we're like, are we still good where we're at? Yeah, okay. And the conversation was, if either one of us has the feeling of wanting children, then we need to come to the other person and let them know without the expectation that anything is going to happen right now. Because you've got to let that other person process and we be on the same page about it. That hasn't happened yet.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll tell you, like, I told you earlier, like, I'm a person who journals and prays every morning. And I have had to let go of a lot of control.
Mm-hmm.
And there have been times where I said, what you want with my life,
Yeah.
do it. And never have I felt the tug of motherhood.
Mm.
I love kids. I love other people having kids, but I haven't had that tug on my heart.
Mm.
And so that's not where I think my time and energy is supposed to be. I think my impact is supposed to be elsewhere.
Mm-hmm.
And so the businesses definitely have been the babies, for sure. But yeah, and for a long time in the marriage, I always felt uncomfortable to answer the question of, like, do you have kids? Are you having kids? Which it's a very personal question.
It
If you
is.
think about
Very.
it. And now I can just, it's been enough years where I'm like, the next question is, how long have you been married?
Mm.
And I said 10 years. And they're like, oh, okay, so you must know.
Mm-hmm.
Or whatever. But yeah, now I'm more confident in saying, no, we're not.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. So I'm so happy we're talking about this because your story, your lead up is so similar to mine and Colby's. Colby and I've been together for 17 years this year. Married for 15. Ours was the same thing. And at 5 years, not even on the table until 5 years. I was 22 when I got married.
Mm-hmm.
And at year 5, and that comes up quickly, by the way. It came up really quickly for us. And I'm like, oh wow, already? We also said we were going to renew our vows. We haven't done that yet either. But it was like, okay, not yet. Not yet. A ton of things are going on. We'll wait a little, come back in a year or something. And you talk about the feeling of if something changes. So for me, and I think a lot of people listening, there is this checklist that a lot of people go into life with. I'm not even going to say marriage, but just life. You get the job, you get the house, you get the dog, you get married, you get the kids, whatever. You have them, every 2 years and, back to back, boy, girl, whatever. And neither one of us ever felt like we had a checklist. Like right off the bat, I never thought I'd be married at 22. So it was like, well, even if I had one, it's kind of out of the water at this point. And we were just kind of waiting for something to happen. I'd had one moment. We moved right after I graduated college, and we were bored, and we were both working office jobs, and everyone else was married and have kids. And I'm like, okay, well, I guess we just go ahead and do it. Like, what else are we doing with our time? Like every night is rinse and repeat. And like, I'm just like, well, isn't this just the next thing? And he's like, okay, we're moving. Like, if that's why you think you're ready to have a kid, that we're not having a kid for that reason.
Yeah.
I had the pull. So I literally woke up one morning and would have moved mountains. It was like I had this intuition that she was coming and I had to get everything ready. And it was the most visceral feeling. I can't, it's hard to
Yeah.
even describe. And Colby, of course, did not understand because
Yeah.
he's like, we just talked about this. Like, what? What is happening? And I'm like, I'm sorry, I need you to get there quicker because this is where I'm at. It's such a strong pull. I can't describe. And he's like, okay, we'll take a beat. Like, we're going to have to talk about it. Like what you're saying, like, it's not fair for him. And that was a huge struggle for us because he's like, this is whiplash. Like, out of nowhere, you're saying you're ready. We just talked about it. You weren't, and so that created a lot of tension. And then I told myself after we had her that unless I felt that feeling again, that's
Yeah.
it, right? Like
Yeah.
there weren't going to be more. And that was a really hard struggle because everyone, obviously, everyone has opinions, right?
Yep,
Like,
they
oh,
do.
she needs a sibling. Does she? She's not asked for one. Like, she's 7, she still hasn't asked for one.
Yep.
Um, and I'm like, but no, like we were always doing this the way that we wanted to do that was right for us,
Yeah.
and we'll do this the same way, right? Um, I love that you share that because I think that so many people go into parenthood thinking that they have to, that it's part of their checklist or that they're doing it for someone else. And there's a great big world out there that it doesn't mean you're not good with kids and it doesn't mean that you don't like kids. It's just, it's your life.
Yeah.
You get to do whatever the hell you want.
Yeah. But it's not like the only reason why you don't have kids is because you don't like kids. There are people who don't love kids and don't
Sure.
have them.
Sure.
There are people like me. I love kids,
Mm-hmm.
but I don't have them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My sister's like that. My sister Becca, she has a stepson but hasn't had kids of her own, and she is probably the most maternal out of all of us, right?
Because she's got some space.
And but
to
she's
be.
the
Yeah.
best aunt,
Yeah.
to all of and one of my sisters and I, we have only children. And then my sister Jenny has 3 kids, so she did it for all of us. You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
Yep.
But I think that it can be tough having to explain yourself, but also by explaining yourself, it's almost like you give permission to other people to be like, oh,
Yeah.
okay, maybe I don't have to do that. So thank you for sharing
Yeah.
that.
I was leading a Being Well workshop years ago. And however the conversation was going, I facilitate a lot in
Mm-hmm.
the room. It came up for me to make a comment about not having kids. It aligned
Mm-hmm.
with the story I was telling. And a woman came up to me afterwards and she's like, I just want to tell you, I'm really thankful how confident you are to talk about you don't have kids here in the South. Um, because I am struggling with feeling like I'm supposed to be at a different phase of life because of the age that I am.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I just that's one thing. It's like there's not a set timeline. There's not a set way for us to do this. I got married at 24. My sisters got married in their mid 30s. We all got married the same year. Bless my parents. They never thought that was going to happen. So like it can be different times.
Mm-hmm.
It can be one kid. My husband he's one of 10 kids. So we come from, but they're all right. There's not a timeline. And so I
Mm-hmm.
think it's helpful. And I'm glad that you wanted to talk about this because the more that we hear about someone living and deciding to live a little bit different, kind
Mm-hmm.
of gives you the confidence to be like, okay, well, I'm not failing or I'm not behind.
Yeah.
No.
Well, there's a saying that shame dies when you tell your story out loud. And I like that, but I also think that shame dies when you hear other people tell their stories
Yeah.
that are close to yours.
Yeah.
It gives you permission and it's like, oh, well, she can do it. And I think community is so important for a million different reasons. But that level of community where it's like, you might not think that telling that could have a huge impact, and maybe even something really small you may not think has a huge impact, but tell it anyway. Right? Like show up anyway, tell it anyway, because someone is going to hear it, even if it's just yourself. Even if you're the only person that needs to hear the message, it can be really
But I also
transformative.
have the ability to change my mind.
Oh,
And that's
yes.
another thing I've talked with a good friend where she's been trying to decide if they're going to have kids or not.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, guess what?
Yeah.
You can make the decision today that you're not,
Mm-hmm.
but in 2 years, if something changes, you get to decide to say yes.
Mm-hmm.
Same thing with me. I could be 45
Mm-hmm.
and feel like that's the right time for us to have a kid or adopt, or I don't know. I'm just making
Yeah.
this up. I'm not predicting the future at all, but I'm just saying, like, I think giving myself that freedom is really helpful too. Of like, you can say out loud you don't have kids and you're not planning to have kids on this podcast.
Mm-hmm.
And then in 5 years, I could see you and say, that changed.
Mm-hmm.
And it's okay.
Yeah. Well, because that's what humans do. They change, they evolve. Like, if you're the same person every year,
Yeah.
you're in the wrong place,
Yeah.
right? But I also think that, yeah, giving yourself permission, never saying never. And I remember when we waited 5 years to talk about it, people just eventually quit asking,
Yeah.
which was nice because now they're just assuming we're not having them. And so they don't say anything. There is kind of that beauty too, which once you've said it, they're like, okay, gig is up. We're not asking anymore. And then, oh, surprise. Well, we changed our mind, right? Again, gives people permission to do the same thing. Like, just because your story is this one day, tomorrow it may be
Yeah,
different.
it's my story today.
Yeah. I love that. Thank
Yeah.
you for sharing that. Okay. All right. So I want to do a hype list real quick.
Okay.
Because I mean we could just keep talking forever. But so I named the hype squad because I use the hype list as an assignment with clients. And so it's a really great way to celebrate. The whole message behind this podcast is to brag and be full of yourself. And that typically is cringeworthy for a lot of people, myself included. And we don't do it enough, right? We don't celebrate our wins enough. And so the hype list is a list of accomplishments or things that you've overcome that you're really proud of and you need to remind yourself. So I want you to just share one thing that you can brag about that we can celebrate.
So this last year, something that's always been like a dream that I wanted to do. It's still a dream, but I got a step closer this year. I really have always wanted to speak on stages, like be a keynote. Always been a dream of mine to be on stage in that way. And I was hired for my first keynote back in October. And I developed the keynote, practiced it, and did it. And going back to perfection, it wasn't perfect. Will I want to refine it? Yeah. I want to clean it up? Absolutely. But like, I am so proud of myself for doing it, for saying yes, for putting in the work of developing a keynote, which is a lot different from developing a workshop or prepping for something else, because you are holding the room for 45 minutes.
You're the star.
Yeah. And no one else is talking, no one else is in, and so I did that in October, and I loved it, and I can't wait to do more of it.
Congratulations. How many times did you go through your keynote before you were on stage? And did you record yourself?
Record before or record the keynote?
Well, record yourself practicing.
I didn't record myself practicing, but I timed myself. But I've also been speaking for 9 years. It's just I've never done a keynote.
Yeah.
So I've gone through courses and done things where I've trained up in certain skills. But I started writing the keynote 2 months out. I started practicing it daily 1 month out. So every morning my team would see it on the calendar. I would stay home and I would practice, and I'd come into the office a little later. I mean, it's a lot of discipline to do it, because what you want is you want to stand on stage and it just flow from you, because it's just muscle memory at that point.
I'm really happy. First of all, congratulations. Thanks. I'm really happy you shared the prep for that, because most people do not realize, and a lot of people, I mean, just in general, are quick to judge, to be in an audience and to see it from a different perspective. But there is so much work that goes into public speaking in general, but keynote especially, that maybe hearing that will give them a newfound respect for.
But also makes you think, like, the ones that you really enjoyed whenever you've heard a speaker, know that there was a lot of work that person has put in to make sure that you learned something and enjoyed it the whole time.
Yeah, never assume that what you're seeing is someone's day one.
Yeah.
Because it's not.
Or that they're like just naturally gifted.
Yeah.
I mean, you see these documentaries about like Beyonce and J-Lo and stuff, and you look at behind the scenes of the amount of days, weeks, and months they practice for one show. Yes, they're naturally gifted, but the amount of work that goes and discipline that goes into it.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, okay, you may say you want to be Beyonce, but you don't. You don't.
I don't.
I don't. I don't. Not at all. This has been so lovely.
Thank
You so much for coming
Yes,
and
thank
doing this
you.
with me, getting hyped with me. You're welcome back anytime.
Thanks.
Thanks everyone for listening. Be kind to yourselves today and every day. And thanks for getting hyped with us.